Good morning. This is Pigsy doing another video. Now, I've got a feeling that some entity may come in. It's been in the threshold of my mind for a little while. There's RX, and there's URX. There's RX, not URX. Yeah, one second. So yeah, sorry, a little distraction there. So URX, I think's well, they're erogenous, so they aren't really. There is some gender there, actually. Yes, there's some gender there, but they both look They look female. These dark reptilians from the sort of nether region, because it compacts within them, and it's only when they're sort of mating that maybe they sort of open that part up so that it looks feminine from that side of things, because it's kind of vulnerable, and also they've got a harder shell. It's like the skin's a lot harder, so it's not as flexible as a human, so you can't really have the appendage hanging around, so it would be a bit more vulnerable to attack and so on. So I'll see if RX wants to come in. Yes, I do want to come in. I've been watching some of the stuff you've been up to, Pigsy. It's been fairly interesting, and our species is trying to get more in contact with humanity, but the difference and some of the problems are with the politics and the way humanity is. Initially we have to set up a way of first contact all the way in, and there is other ways in than actually physically turning up at your planet. Your planet's heavily guarded by different races, and there's protocol to go through. A lot of the military have made deals with reptilian people, and as a result there's a war faction that basically guard the actual solar system externally. There's talk about wars between other races, and this is quite common. This is not an uncommon thing. However, the grand scale of the politics, most of them are working together at some level, so it's not a case of that there's somebody trying to liberate mankind from another race. Actually, the reptilian way, you have to liberate yourself. If you're trapped in your own hell, you need to find your own way out. You can't expect others to do your work for you. In fact, that will bring more war to your doorstep, because we don't have pity for people that decide to be weak. They choose to be food in our chain of command. If you give in, you give out, and you give to, and that's the way it is. But we're not a warring species ourselves. Our interests are more scientific. The only time we do is when the colony is attacked. We do have a matriarchal system, so our main queen actually controls how we breed and when we can breed. There's strict rules on these kind of things, so we can't just go off and breed with whoever we want to. We can't just start having our own children without some permissions in place, because it's just the protocol of our species, and it can cause mutiny within our hierarchy. We've currently done some experimentation with some of your DNA, Pigsy. What happened is that through your conscious connection and your mission, we were able to extract the frequencies of your DNA, and then by doing that, we were able to replicate a hybrid after so many generations, we actually have is more of a humanoid, in that originally we reproduce from your DNA several human species types, and then we adjust the environment to these species types, and then we add our stem cells to their stem cells, and through compatibility cloning methods, and then they will produce a being that's compatible with our species and our environment. And then once we've created a species that can go between both the environments, they will act as the ambassador to our species. And that is one of the protocols we operate. Our atmosphere is different to yours, our temperatures are different to yours, our viruses and bacteria we have in our environment is different to yours. This is why we use different methods, because we may bring something quite harmful to humans, to the earth, and the reverse of that, that we could catch something that could infect our entire colony and damage them. So this is why we do this. It's the most effective method for this type of communication. So that's why we do this. This type of stuff. Yes, that's true. So I'm going to URX wants to do a quick word, and then we'll probably call it a day on this communication. I am URX, and yes, I am a female reptilian, but I don't always come across that way, because I'm heterogeneous in nature, and yes, the female class does tend to rule the male class, because it's important that we control the balance. See, because some of the reptilians in the past were too warlike and were constantly warring those species. The problem with that is that when you have a lower male population, there's no way to stabilize the society. So in essence, it's like a continual purge or war, and as a result, it'd be the less warlike ones left at the nest that would be the breeding stock, while the males that go out to fight, the more aggressive ones, they won't live very long. So it becomes quite a difficult process. So we got to a point where we could basically a form of democracy took place, and it was a situation where the females devised a way to prove superiority over the male stock intellectually, and prove that warfare is not just based on physical brawl and control. As a result, we set up the new hierarchy for the black reptilians, and yes, and it seems to have worked quite well, to be honest, because the species has thrived ever since. Some of the places we live are less inhabitable, like deserty type environments, and we tend to have bases underground, networks and tunnels, because while we like the heat, we need to get out of it, and also we need certain resources in there. Dietary things, we actually are quite vegetarian. We do eat, when our own species die, we do have a ritual of eating them, and there are other sort of situations where we do forage and eat meat. We do eat the meat of our enemies. That's one of the things we do, but we actually devour the whole creature, so it's not quite is no different than human society, really. I think it's because you've separated yourselves from the butchery side of it that you don't fully appreciate the whole essence of a survival species, and its desire to thrive, to fight, to become unified with a stronger species. So in essence, when we eat a being that's had a long life, or it's died in combat, it has a special spiritual connection. So it's connected to nature and its structure, basically, and it's also the energy frequencies within it, some of the consciousness as well. Wise meat makes wise food, as they say, because basically the animal would be in a certain amount of good health if it's lived a long time. then it's believed that possibly it's got resistance to things and other energies around it. It's considered more holy, I think, based on if it's aged or not. So anyway, this is my end of the conversation. So I'm going to go now and let Pigsy carry on doing whatever he's doing. Yes, I think he's driving to somewhere. Yes, we'll speak to you soon on that one. Don't worry, I'm stopped at red light. Yeah, it's interesting, sorts of things that play in your consciousness, and you can kind of feel these inner voices. And I mean, don't worry, it's not like I've gone schizophrenic or something. And if it was, what is schizophrenia in itself? It's you know, one level it's a condition that can't be controlled, or it's a condition that could be controlled, and it's no different than a lot of other things in people's lives that they're a part of. However, that's not what's going on. It's more of a feeling of a consciousness or a reflection of thoughts. So it's like knowing your thoughts are not your own thoughts. So there's a type of telepathic connection. A lot of that goes down to this hybridization thing that they've done. So if you a consciousness connects to another consciousness, there's a way you can actually tap into the auric field, and that's a bit like giving a fingerprint to your DNA. So there's a way they can actually figure it out from there, and so they've taken it, they've produced children with some of this DNA. They've taken a while of studying that, so like the time dilation's a bit different as well. And so they've hybridized humans of myself. They were asking me what was the environmental temperatures of Earth, and what gas do we actually breathe, what sort of compounds of gas makes up sort of air and stuff like that, or the ratio actually of oxygen. So I sort of advise them about 20% oxygen, and they need carbon dioxide in there as well. It seems like your body reacts differently if it's just in a one of these pure states. It's not so great having pure oxygen. I think it over-accelerates some cellular problems. And so yeah, it's very interesting stuff. I mean, you know, if it's like the fringe channeling or something, but it's definitely it's interesting how our consciousness spreads out like a tree, basically, roots into other areas, and that's why some stuff's not really, because I don't know if planets operate as dimensions, so I've always wondered about these things. So I've seeded my consciousness into another realm, basically. There's things like humans are all over the galaxy, so it's nothing special. There was some program started up ages ago, I think initially was for, so, you know, if we create a slave race that basically operates for us, that we could, you know, they could do the work for us, and they're better suited to the environment. And then beyond that, it becomes, let's create a species that has multiple purposes and can function in different environments and act in different ways. The problem is there's groups of humans that are just developed for warfare, and some are developed for other things. And the idea of independence, they get to a point where they might say that they actually have gained independence. So there's probably a limitation to how long slavery lasts. A bit like retirement, actually. You work as a debt slave for so long, and then when you get to a point where your body starts to frail, they say, well, you can actually retire because you've earned the right of freedom. And that's pretty much it. However, you know, we're going to put loads of things in the way to kill you off, or because the greatest glory is in heaven, or some sort of mad stuff goes on in some people's things. You know, like, why live in hell when you can live in nirvana? So it's all very interesting stuff. Anyway, just pick the sign off. I hope that was useful. So yeah, okay, cool, and I'll speak to you soon.